Thank you. If you want to get, thank you. So thank you. If you'd like to put your first slide up as I introduce you, that'd be fine, and they'll give you a chance to get up and running. So for the next hour, we're going to be so wonderfully entertained and enlightened here. VShankar is the Coleman Chair and Professor of Marketing and the Director of Research for the Center of Retail Studies at the Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. His areas of specialization include artificial intelligence, digital business, marketing strategy, B2b marketing, innovation, retailing, international marketing, and pricing. And in this area of digital marketing, we are always looking for the latest knowledge because it changes so rapidly. So we're so grateful that he can join us. He has been recognized as one of the world's most influential scientific minds by Thomson Reuters, among the top 1% of scientists in marketing, and is a top 10 scholar worldwide on innovation. He's the winner of the AMS Cutco Vecker Outstanding Marketing Educator Award for lifetime contributions to marketing, the Lifetime Achievement Award in Retailing from the AMA, the Majahan Award for Lifetime Contributions to Marketing Strategy, Lifetime Contributions, the Distinguished Alumni Award from IIM in Calcutta, the Distinguished Alumni Award from IIT, the Clark Award for the Outstanding Direct and Interactive Marketing Educator, the Long-Term Impact Award for an IJRM article, and the Green Award for the Best Article in JMR. He's a co-editor of the Handbook of Marketing Strategy, the author of Shopper Marketing. He is published in every possible journal that you can imagine, and the Shankar Spiegel Award is named in his honor. He serves on the policy boards of JR and JM and the editorial boards of Marketing Science and JAMS. And boy, we are so excited to have you join us and grateful for the pandemic, because as you said, there'd be no way you could do this. He's getting me ready to teach at noon Eastern time. So we're great to have you right before your class. Thank you so much for joining us, Venki. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you all of you at ISBM. Thank you for sending me the mug, and here's the plug for the ISBM again, and thank you very much for the opportunity every time. And here is the coaster on which I'm using the mug on. So with that, I am delighted to be back at ISBM. The audience, I get so much out of this every time I have a presentation here. And thank you all for joining me here. As Lynn said, I'm going to be talking more about digital marketing. I know some of you may be in digital marketing, some of you may not be, but we'll have some polls throughout the session that talks about your experience or your reaction. So here's the agenda for the 1 hour. And I'm going to start by asking and discussing how B2B digital marketing is changing the game for a lot of B2B firms, right? And introduce the digital marketing frameworks that I think are critical. I've been very fortunate to be working with a lot of B2B firms, either in research capacity or in a consultative or executive education. I'm going to share with you what I've learned and what I'm learning, and also speak to you about particularly social media strategies, which are becoming more and more commonplace now. And more recently, more B2B firms have joined the mobile bandwagon. And so we'll talk a little bit about mobile strategy as well, and then conclude with some takeaways, right? So let's understand how B2B digital marketing is changing the game, right? I'm going to express this in terms of a number of cartoons, graphics, infographics, because many of you may know what is already happening, right? And before I go there, let's have a poll. Has your organization increased your digital spend since the onset of the pandemic? And the answer is yes or no. Very simple. So Lynn or Lori, you can tell me once the poll is completed, because I am staring into two screens, one to my left and right, and all of them are showing my PowerPoint presentation. Sorry.
Sure. So it looks like the poll is pretty close to done, and 71% of people have increased their digital spending since the pandemic started. Awesome.
So that is an indication of where I was going, and thank you very much for confirming that. And this is what I found with all the companies that I've been associated with. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list, so I'm always looking for validation. So what is happening? We know that technology has been evolving, digital technology especially rapidly. And those of you who care to remember the mainframe computers back in the 1960s, although I was not around at that time, but I used to know that in 70s, mainframe computers used to be the size of a football field, that everybody saw, oh, it's like a museum. Nobody goes in there. You can touch, you cannot touch, you can only see and admire, right? And then we had the mini computing in the 1970s. Then we had the personal computer revolution, spearheaded by the Apples and the IBMs. Then we had the desktop internet computing, which came in the 90s. Then, of course, you had the internet in the middle of 1990s, and mobile internet computing taking off in the 2000s. And today we are in a world where a lot of mobile devices proliferate, wearable everywhere computing, including our watches, smart devices like glasses, smart speakers, and others yet to be invented, right? So much so that this digital technology has addicted us a lot, right? In fact, we're all talking about Facebook addiction, which has been in the news recently for not being very responsible enough to stop some of their programs on their tracks. And they knew that it was addictive. But here's my cartoon on that. And so much so that most of us are completely hooked to any of the social media, including Facebook. So in this cartoon, this lady says, "Doctor, please tell me, boy or girl, I want to update my status on Facebook," right? We're also increasingly in a wireless age. And this gives a new description of wireless ages. We have mobile addiction too. This is a picture of a typical in-person meeting where people are in a restaurant trying to get to talk to each other, and this is what happens. And everything is an app, right? Even our kids, the millennials and the Gen Zs, think somehow they were downloaded. Sometimes we have to remind them, you know, you weren't downloaded, you were born, right? And so we're in an age where digital is everything, so much so that even tablets, Moses has to upgrade his tablets, as Steve Jobs has gone there and is trying to help them upgrade the tablets. And it's everything, right? This picture really captures my family here. We've had lots of iPods for my children and ourselves. Then we had lots of iPads. And the picture on the right, the guy that I paid is the guy that I am, right? I paid and I'm paying and I'll continue to pay. So this is in the world of everything. And so much so that we're also moving digital to a cloud. Even iCloud, where Steve Jobs has to go up the cloud and call Bill Gates and says, guess where I'm calling you from, right? So we're all, jokes apart, all these are telling us how rapidly we're digitizing our daily life, let alone the B2B business part of it, right? And we talked about wearables. We have so many wearables now, hands-free, voice or gesture control. It's typically always on. They're all low power consumption. It gives you so many reminders and so many distractions too at the same time. And we are in an environment where we can combine our positioning systems, where locations, we have accelerometer, and as you know, Apple has recently decided to include 2 health devices into the watch in the next generation that they're going to come up with. One is a thermometer, and the other is a blood pressure measure indicator. So they might put some of the medical equipment out of business, but this shows how rapidly we are integrating a lot of things into our daily life. We still have cameras, microphones, other sensors. Now we've moved from Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G to 5G now, and then NFC, near field communications, that is now giving us more and more access to a lot of things. It is definitely attention getting and attention disrupting. And we have lots of apps being developed by third parties. We have APIs and accessories. All of these are contributing rapidly, especially after the pandemic. A lot of things have moved to digital. And so my next poll question to you is your organization fully leveraging the digital marketing? Given all the developments that I've just discussed, where do you think your organization is? Do you think that they are fully leveraging or not? So it's just a yes or no. So Lori, I'll wait for you to finish the poll and let me know the results.
This one's pretty. Wow.
Is it done? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Just show the, maybe you can see the results, but 90% said no. 90% said no.
Oh, wow. This is what I expected. And thank you again for validating that, because this is a constant issue in most organizations that I deal with. You know, back at this turn of the internet, Arvind Rangaswamy at Penn State and I started working a lot on digital marketing and internet marketing. And we found that people were in infancy, and actually businesses were ahead than academics at that time. But now, you know, when we come to 20 plus years, we still find that businesses are only catching up, because some of the early businesses that had the lead, only a select few, as they went to different phases, which I call starting from the presence phase, when companies used to put up a website, then the exploration stage when they started understanding, going beyond the website and try to include, let's say, an order capturing network or a supply chain network from behind. And then they used to go to integration phase, and a fully digitally transformed organization, that's the final phase, not very many companies are in. So I did some polls, surveys in the last couple of years, and I found that a overwhelming majority of the organizations are still not yet in the digital transformation phase, which would be fully leveraging the potential of digital marketing. So you're not alone. Your organization is not alone. Most of the organizations, particularly in the B2B space, although they're embracing digital now more faster than before, they're still not up there, right? So that brings me to the issue of how B2B digital marketing is changing a lot of things right now, right? This is based on some latest statistics pulled together from different sources. So I'm sorry, I'm not referring to every source. 67% of B2B buyers' journey is now digital. So in other words, whether your company is fully leveraging digital marketing or not, whether you like it or not, 2/3 of your buyer's journey is largely driven by digital, okay? Not only that, 57% of B2B buyers engage with digital media even before your sales can really touch them. So in other words, I'm not even talking about your salesperson making a call, face-to-face call, before they can even realize that you're a prospect, a company's a prospect, or they want to go back for additional sales. 57% of the buyers have already engaged using digital media, digital channels, digital networks. We know that 75% of B2B buyers, and more importantly, 84% of CXOs use social media. I'm not talking about for their personal use, but for social media for the purposes of making business decisions. And this is really a very important statistic, because many of us really don't completely grasp this fact that, so it's become subconscious, because as digital media and social media pervaded people's lives, it has crept into the businesses as well. And as a result, more people are using social media than ever before in terms of making inquiries, explorations into business decisions. We know that 80% of B2B buyers use mobile and network. So they're a mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet or smart speaker or any wearables. And mobile, most importantly, plays a significant role in 60% of the B2B purchases. This is pretty shocking to me, particularly even though I do a lot of work in mobile marketing. I didn't expect this to be this high. I knew that it was going up, but it suggests that more and more senior executives who apparently are not the Gen Zs and millennials are still now totally embrace the use of mobile in making decisions, explorations, and calls, right? And also mobile has a significant role in 40% of the revenues. So I guess they are correlated with purchases, but the most important thing is purchases could mean, knowing, shortlisting, getting the consideration set, getting other things going. But the fact that it is a big influence on revenues is a telling story for all of us. So digital first is now the new normal since the pandemic. Not only a lot of companies have pivoted. Before the break, we heard Laura talk about HEB, and HEB is a member company in my Center for Retail Studies, for which I'm a research director, and I work closely with them. And it's a great example of how they pivoted to digital, both on the consumer side, where they have curbside delivery to the door, but a lot on the B2B side, working with multiple vendors and multiple large customers, business customers, educational customers, institutions, and they have digitized so many of their customer-facing operations. But in spite of that, over 70% of executives feel that B2B firms don't communicate well through social media. So in other words, you all said, 90% of you said you're not fully leveraging digital marketing spend, but one of the ways in which this is happening is social media, and social media communication is not achieving its desired objectives, right? And still more, 82% believe that firms are not monetizing their social media spend. In other words, the ROI of social media is either unknown, unproven, or unrealized. So all of this suggests that we need to take a closer attention, and the power of frameworks for us, use the right frameworks for making our decisions. So now let me introduce the B2B digital marketing framework that I've used extensively working with companies, and I've learned a lot more using them, and firms have also benefited from that. The first one that I'm going to introduce is the B2B digital strategy value grid, right? When firms are trying to digitize their operations, their businesses, one of the things that they are looking for is, what is the strategic value that I'm going to achieve by doing that? Am I doing it just because everybody else is doing it? Am I doing it because it's a necessity? Am I trying to achieve some strategic gains in here? So this framework has two axes. One of them on the horizontal is the orientation of the firm. Is the firm primarily trying to leverage digital to reduce costs? That could be one orientation. Another orientation is, does it try to leverage digital to increase value to the consumer? So that's the value addition part of it. On the other axis, we have customer lifetime value, right? I have a portfolio of customers, some of them with low customer value, some of them with higher customer value. For discussion's sake, let's keep anybody above a median high and below the median low, but you get the drift. So depending on that, I have 4 types of ways of envisioning my digital strategy for these types of customers, for these types of orientations, right? So let's start with the top left cell in this grid. The first one is digital self-service, what I call. These are customers that are not inherently going to give a high lifetime value. These are maybe customers that you have repeat customers, they are buying things that are repeat. So a good example here is FedEx, and FedEx has a large number of small, medium-sized business customers, and increasingly the FedEx's cost of dealing with these customers are not going down, especially in this inflationary environment, especially with supply chain constraints. So they have found ways to digitally use digital to extend self-service options for their small and medium size. For example, tracking, started this much earlier than the other courier providers, tracking your shipment. Previously, they used to really consume a lot of their call center time. Now, everybody can track their shipment very easily And these are all many very low value customers, but low cost. It also reduces their call center costs. So that's one use of the digital strategy in terms of value. If you are targeting primarily lots of low value customers and you want to be able to provide some value addition, why? Because you want to retain these customers, because you don't want them to go to competition, because they're still combined very important to the revenue base of your firm. And at the same time, you can see some minor value addition so that you can increase their business from, let's say, by 10% or so, or maybe 20% by adding some digital extension that provides additional value. So an example here is Otis Elevators. It has a lot of smaller buildings to which they sell elevators. And what Otis does is that they have given the sensors capability and being able to digitally monitor the repairs and the maintenance issues would give them an extra leg to retain their customers, but at the same time also charge a premium for that digital extended service. So that's an example of a digital extension. On the left bottom corner is the strategy of digital efficiency. Now this refers to a lot of high customer lifetime value customers. These are your large business customers. For them, they have to have efficiency, otherwise their businesses will not be profitable or growing. So you have to help these businesses. And how do you help these businesses? You reduce your own cost of dealing with them, the high value. And a good example is that a lot of telecom providers, Vodafone is a good example. And here they work with lots of high value business customers, all the big multinationals, for which they have huge volumes. And then they have to constantly reduce the cost of operating. So if it's billing, if it's payments, all those things are totally digitized now, to the extent that it is the cost per customer keeps going down, plus transaction keeps going down. So that's one way of approaching your digital strategy. And finally, the most value-adding way for the business as well as the customers is the cell on the right bottom, which I call digital business models. Are you using digital to create new business models? Are you trying to create some white spaces that never existed before? Here, an example I want to give is a company I worked with for the last 15, 16 years, Halliburton, in the oil and gas service space. Landmark is their digital arm, which helps a lot of their clients who happen to be oil and gas companies and other companies interested in exploration to really use all the digital technologies to mine and discover new reserves and estimate the reserves, and use technologies to see how feasible they may be for drilling and so on. So Landmark has come up with a new business product and model called Landmark GeoSuite, which is a subscription-based model, and that allows it to really extend their business beyond what they're currently doing and monetize these operations. So to summarize, this digital strategy value grid is a valuable way of using a framework to start off your digital strategy, because it tells us for which customers you want to use, which types of strategy, what kind of allocation you want to do, and what among this is going to be your primary strategy, right? So the more successful digital companies that are fully leveraging their digital potential are those in the digital business models quadrant. And I think this is a valuable framework for you to think about, right? Now, having said that, let me ask you a poll question. Has your organization created new digital business models? And again, the answer is yes or no, and I'd love to hear from you.
This is interesting. All right, we'll give it another second or two.
Sure. And Lori, at this point in time, if there are any questions in the chat, please do let me know. As I said before, I'm not able to see it.
So it looks like about half of our folks have done something digital in this period of time.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And I'm actually surprised to see nearly half have used created new business models. That's good to know. I love to hear from you after the end of the presentation and some of those things. But that's the way for a lot of B2B companies to be going forward, at least try and explore many business models before they can go further. So having said that, let me go to the next slide. I mean, I'm having a little bit of an issue. I have to probably close this. Okay, so that brings us to digital marketing communication, the B2B customer funnel. And, this is another framework for us to think about. So if you think about the customer funnel as starting with awareness or reach for a prospect or existing customers for new products and services, then we know we have the interest or lead generation as the next phase. And then there's evaluation by the prospect or customers and scoping of the solutions. And then they have the decision to make. And hopefully, if you're a marketer, you want you to be in that decision set. And then there will be a closure, final decision, and final choice of a provider. And hopefully, you want to be in that framework to be able to close in on that. And then there's after sales service, and then there's word of mouth. This is the B2B customer funnel that most organizations are facing. And the important thing to notice now in digital, there's a lot of content in the customer journey that is quite different from the B2C, right? So if you look at this picture, it starts with, on the left side is B2B, and the right side is B2C. It shows the contrast, but I'm going to focus on the B2B side. And from attraction, now B2B companies have to use a lot of checklists, white papers, industry reports, projecting their thought leadership and content that creates the attraction for potential buyers. And then for consideration, we have webinars, we have conferences, we have case studies, and go to the extent of ROI calculations, and then testimonials and endorsements from other customers to create the conversion. And that contrasts with the B2C customer journey, where you start with a lot of viral content, infographics, some blog posts, some videos, particularly for those products or services that is very visually relevant, and buyer guides, product demos, and then lots of reviews, right? Reviews have come to become a very important source of buyers conversion these days in B2C space. So as you can see, the content is king now in B2B, right? The content that you put out is becoming more and more important than before in this digital world, right? So the B2B digital marketing strategy elements that most firms have is to now operate these buttons, right? How can I make sure the search is optimized, whether it's my website, organic search, or paid search through Google AdWords or AdSense, then my own websites, how do I make it not only optimized, but conversion friendly? And my email marketing campaigns, my social media campaigns, my mobile marketing campaigns, using apps particularly. All of these are the strategy elements or levers for us to play with. And now it's time for me to introduce another framework that this be a very important framework for us to better understand how to use our digital marketing communication strategy more effectively. Now, this is what I call the B2B social media mobile matrix. And here I have two axes. One is the reach, the number of B2B customers that you want to reach. So if you're companies like, Caterpillar, or if you're like, like companies like Blue Origin, where you have a few business customers maybe, then, your reach may not be the primary goal, but for a lot of organizations, they're marketing to a lot of SMBs. So reach is a goal for some of them. So the reach can be low or high with their communication strategy. On the other axis, it's engagement levels, how engagement levels are low or high, right? And depending on that, we have 4 types of communication strategies, digital. And let me start with the one at the top left, tactical communications. These are the ones that allow you to reach a fewer number of customers, but at the same time, quick and low engagement, but very tactical, but that serves the purpose, right? If you think of a company like MailChimp, I mean, many of you may have use MailChimp in an individual capacity or in organizational for using surveys and polls and so on, right? And MailChimp is a very successful organization. Recently, it was bought by Intuit for a very lucrative sum. So obviously, they did whatever they did well. But MailChimp is kind of company like this. They don't have very, most of their digital marketing campaigns don't reach a lot of customers. They are maybe focused on some theme or the other, and then they try to have very quick, short engagements, but then try to do this over and over again successfully, right? Now, you could have a goal of high reach and low engagement, right? Why would B2B firms like to have high reach? As I mentioned before, many of them have maybe marketing to a lot of SMB. I once did some work with Xerox, and initially I thought Xerox sells to a lot of these large-scale companies, multinationals and big companies, but I was surprised to discover how much they were selling to small and medium businesses, and even in the this corner shop in the store that uses a Xerox machine is part of an account, although they may be serviced by a wholesaler. But the point is that there may be reasons for you to reach high, but keep the engagement level of your communication low because you cannot really motivate them enough, or it's not required. So here I'm going to give the example of Maersk, which is a shipper carrier from Denmark. And I'll also give you some examples of the strategy that they have used and how successful and how what are ways they can improve, right? So they went out and reached out multiple potential shippers, and their goal was to keep them engaged, but albeit very short time. Now, many times you may reach maybe low, you're marketing to a fewer customer base, but you want high engagement because you want to deeply explore your relationship, enhance the quality of the relationship. And that's what leads to more of a personalization or advocacy building digital marketing communication approach. And good examples of the companies that follow this are SAP in the enterprise software space, and Caterpillar, I mentioned before. They are into earth-moving equipment, forklift trucks, cranes, excavators, and heavy-duty machinery equipment and services, and farming services too. So they are interested in fewer, larger customers that they want to engage continuously and deeply, and how can they use the potential of digital marketing communication to enhance their loyalty and also the lifetime value. And the final one on the right is when I actually have a large number of customers and I still want to engage them. And that is what a purely loyalty building strategy. And that's what separates B2B digital marketing from B2C. Many of the B2C digital marketing communication are not oriented so much towards loyalty building. And here's an example I want to give is Docusign. Many of you are familiar with Docusign. In fact, I had to use the Docusign document to sign my permission for this conference. Lori, I think you used Docusign. Well, Docusign had a few competitors, but it is the 800-pound gorilla, and they are doing extremely well, as you can see from the market cap, which is growing very fast. And their focus is to reach a number of businesses, large, medium, small, and then also to keep the engagement level high because there are different types of documents, different types of occasions and needs. So they want to continuously use digital to enhance your loyalty. So here are the examples that I talked about. We talked about social media. It can be explained with Donut without all the complications. So if you think about the different platforms, Twitter, think about donuts. I'm eating a donut. Facebook, I like donuts. Foursquare, which is now small. This is where I eat donuts, right? And in Instagram, here is a vintage photo of my donut. And YouTube, here I am eating a donut. Look at me, right? LinkedIn, my skills include donut eating, right? Go figure, right? And Pinterest helps in donut recipe, right? As if there's one, I don't know. And Last.fm is now Spotify, and now listening to donuts as a jingle or whatever. And G+ is no longer there. Again, a social network. I'm a Google employee eating donuts, okay? I'm sure Google employees are not there now. They're remote, most of them, but they may still be eating more donuts. Here are the platforms that are frequently used by B2B firms. There is no TikTok. It's emerging now. I don't have time. Otherwise, I have a separate presentation on TikTok that I'd love to talk about. Before the break, before the last few slides, I talked about MailChimp. And these are the kind of tactical communications they put out from time to time to enhance their digital capabilities. So they put a small business week, something timely, topical, and this gets them some traction onto their customers, so they get some orders, and they get some businesses going. I know a lot of us are on Facebook, I assume, so I guess Facebook, a lot of you like to think of it as for older generations, but you'll be surprised to see that Facebook has a number of millennials and Gen Zs also being part of it, only that they don't use it extensively. It's a 2.9 billion community today all over the world, and using Facebook, B2B firms can join and build communities still. I'd like to have a poll later on as to how your firms are doing it. Collect market research data, and build brand fan base, which is now becoming very important. When I show you the MERS example, you'll see how important Facebook was. Salesforce uses this extensively. AGCO, an agricultural machinery company, uses it. SAP, I mentioned before, uses it extensively. And here's an example from how Maersk used it successfully. Maersk was one of the first ones to start this in 2011, as early 10 years ago, with an experiment. What was their experiment? The employees told them that, look, you don't have a Facebook presence, you're living in caves. Go and create some ads, right? So they created something to make sure they had a presence, right? So it was not explicitly for lead generation or acquisition. Very carefully made sure that that's not really a sales-inducing platform, because they wanted to gain some traction, right? So sharing relevant content, story of how its shipping containers navigate the Baltic Sea. So for example, they showed how shipping containers actually go around the sea, what are the hazards they face, and what are the ways in which all the containers, the shipments are taken care of, and so on. It became an educative video and details on Facebook. And attached with that, they had a downloadable brochure of anti-freeze service. So that communicated the value of what they were doing. They're not asking for no new business. They're not pitching anything. They're simply informing and getting people on board, right? But this is an unintended result because they were not looking for this. What they found was they got 150 unique leads of shippers. These are good, large shippers. And their NPS score turned from -10, you can imagine shippers not having great NPS scores, to +30. So that was pretty significant at that time. And today they have 3 million fans. I mean, can you think of more boring product than shipping, right? Who's going to be excited about shipping, right? Fan base, not like a Major League Baseball team or Nittany Lions having a large fan base, right? But this goes to show that they can also have fans, and 90% share for all the shipping carriers now. They're dominating in the fan base, but fan count is one thing, okay? Remember, that was the initial strategy. But if you look at it now, most shippers are online, they have social media presence, and so they do have that. Now the question is engagement, right? So for Maersk, now the question is for those customers, how am I engaging them deeply enough to have conversions, to have repeat business, to have new business, right? Unfortunately, the latest reports suggest that the organic engagement rate has slipped quite a bit. In fact, so much so that they're not leading. In some polls, they came second, some of them they came fifth, and so on. So this shows the importance of being dynamic in digital marketing. So even though you have a framework that helped you at that time to tell you that, okay, you follow the digital extension strategy, and you could use the digital marketing communication to basically reach out to more people with a low engagement. Things will change, things will be dynamic. And here's Maersk's website. where they have something complementary to their social media presence. Now Twitter has become a go-to channel for a lot of your companies. Why? Because it's a very short microblogging platform with 200 characters. You can make announcements, you can make exciting news items, you can have cool things posted. They have about 220 million active users, they claim, but we know that about a quarter of them are really active. And using Twitter, firms can disseminate updates instantly, as I said, dispel any myth or miscommunications, gather up-to-date market intelligence, and also build a relationship with partners, build brand followers. And companies that are using this extensively is HubSpot, GE, Adobe, ACCO, Intel, Dell. Some of these companies I work with, like Intel, Dell, etc. And one website to show you is HubSpot, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip this and move to YouTube. Which companies are using YouTube more effectively, right? We know it's the largest video sharing website with 2 billion users worldwide. The host hosts generated videos by users, and every second, every minute, 500 hours worth of video are being uploaded now. And it's gone from 200 5 years ago, 200 hours. So you can imagine the popularity of that. Hosts both professional and personal content, and B2B firms can visually appeal to stakeholders, engage with buyers, build rich brand identity. And some companies that are using it very effectively are DHL, Cisco, and Kinaxis, which is a Canadian software firm. LinkedIn, it's just becoming more and more important now in the B2B space, right? It used to be a professional networking site, but now B2B firms can use the same to target employees, buyers, personas. 750 million users, believe it or not. And using the LinkedIn, we can create communities, join communities. We can create advocacy groups for our firms, recruit the right people from LinkedIn, which is a bonus, build employee brand equity. And again, companies that are using it well are Docusign, which is talked about, SAP, Dell, and even Deloitte. Believe it or not, I've consulted for Deloitte, right? So you can imagine how bad I must be. They say the consultant is somebody that cannot do it, right? So if you're a consultant to consultant, I probably cannot do what even the consultant can do, right? So I had an engagement with Deloitte where I learned how, I helped them try to create a digital strategy where they could be using many of their digital capabilities to the different spaces. And most of this, Deloitte is a management consulting and IT consulting firm, but what the digital capabilities that they had, they were not fully leveraging. And one of the ways in which you could use that was basically using LinkedIn, using their thought leadership more effectively. And here's another example of using LinkedIn for lead generation by Docusign. They had a campaign which is sponsored in mails targeted at 7,000 VPs or sales directors. Then mails from industry experts who attended a webinar. And remember, in our framework, Docusign is an example of a firm that is using to promote deep engagement for a large number of clients. And so they have to be very, very focused on fully leveraging digital capabilities. They reached a community of 800, and here are the initial results. The first in-mail, they had 1,700 opens, 140 click-throughs, which is pretty decent. Second in-mail, they had slightly lower opens and lower click-throughs, which is also expected, but pretty good. And they have 12,000 extra visitors, and that created 3 large pipeline opportunities for large customers. Again, you have to understand that deep engagement really helps here. Here's another example, a company that uses Facebook and LinkedIn by telling the story to the customers through the employees, right? SAP Labs Latin America had 176 social media users using 7.5 hours a month. They shared customers through stories through employees, 20% on promoting their services, 80% providing community information. And the results were they built a fan base of 100,000, had a 17% interaction rate, which is pretty impressive for a company like SAP, which is not for everybody, and 12,000 new visitors and 15% engagement rate. Again, remember, they come under the quadrant of high engagement, but maybe low reach. Here's the final example I have, the company that uses Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to provide thought leadership, AGCO, in the agricultural machinery or equipment space. Those of you who don't know AGCO, it's a $12 billion company, and they come under different brands. That's why you may not have heard of them. They have brands such as Massey Ferguson, Fendt, Challenger, Valtra. These are equipment brands for the farmers in the farm equipment business. They connect farmers and machinery dealers through thought leadership. For example, they have a huge thought leadership and tillage tips on how to effectively harvest, how to predict, how to forecast weather patterns, how to get better crops, how to get better yield. As a result of this campaign, they created 180,000 Facebook fan following and 10,000 Twitter following and 3,000 YouTube subscribers, right? And my final example is Adobe, which many of you know. Adobe is 800 down per airline digital, so they know what they do. So they use effectively Instagram, Foursquare, Twitter for a new product launch. That is the Creative Cloud and Creative Suite. And they create an exciting scavenger hunt with puzzle pieces and the balloons in San Francisco that was in physically, they created the excitement, and also online. They have location tips provided in Foursquare. That's how they merge the online and offline. They had Twitter and Instagram for the younger followers. They gave prices of $10,000, lifetime membership for all Adobe products, 30 days of giveaways on Facebook. And what were the results of the campaign? They had 600 hunters on day one, 83,000 new conversions, which is a phenomenal success in this game. 97% neutral to positive sentiment. So in other words, people were not ticked off by this campaign, but rather they were positively tickled by this campaign. 14,000 new fans, 32 million new impressions on the Adobe site, and 3 million visits from social media to website. So again, that's the integration across the media and platforms. 13% subscriptions, 4% subscription to Creative Soup. All the high value adding products. Again, it's a good time for me to ask question number 4. Rate your organization's social media marketing efforts in your industry. And you have 3 choices: above average, average, below average.
Please click in and vote. All right, it looks like maybe we've stabilized there. So unfortunately, the most is 44% of below average and
Right.
33% at average.
Again, thank you for confirming my expectations. I expected the same thing, but the percentage is pretty high, higher than what I thought below average. But that shows that you have more room to grow. I mean, this is always a good news. If you're below average, you can be doing better, right? Here's my cartoon take of all the social media again. LinkedIn, you want to say, Mike, let's be friends. So you're told then, please submit your resume, 2 letters of recommendation, and a blood sample. Wow. And Facebook, Mike, let's be friends. Sure. You and I are both friends with Mark. Let's connect, right? And Twitter, Mike, let's be friends. I am Mike's robot. Your request for friendship has been auto-approved. Okay. I'm probably not as good as the robot, but that was a try. Now let's talk a little bit about B2B mobile marketing. And I know I'm running out of time. I want to keep some for Q&A. Mobile marketing has become dominant now because we have this huge penetration of mobile phones worldwide. 3.8 billion smartphones, 7.8 billion broadband users, 5 million apps in Google Play and Apple together. Some of them are the same apps. And you have 220 billion app loads in the 2020 year alone. That is staggering. That means we are all really app exhausted. 90% of mobile time we spend on mobile apps, believe it or not. 91% of social media platform access is through a mobile device. 70% of YouTube traffic comes from mobile. And 70% of B2B queries, this is the one that I want you to pay attention on, made on mobile devices, right? So we cannot ignore mobile We want to keep this as centerpiece. 70% of executives under 40 use B2B apps. So that is the most important statistics for you, because these are the people are the future decision maker, future CEOs, CMOs, CXOs, whatever, right? And if not, they are not already, right? And about 60% of the firms, I wonder why the other firms don't have apps, but for customers are employees, right? Primary mobile objective in B2B is improve customer loyalty. How do I create stickiness? How do I create attraction? How do I make sure the customer gets on? Companies that are leading others are at Atlas Copco, Clippard, and Regis, which is in the office space business, right? I'm going to skip the link in the interest of time, but to show you the mobile app expectations. 80% people want a B2C experience when purchasing for work. Now, here's where it's getting scary, right? People are used to excellent B2C experience. They want the same for B2B. They want real-time responses and interactions, 80%, and 50% expect response within an hour. This is all B2B. I'm not talking about B2C. 30% expect an immediate response from in-app mobile support, right? That makes the really, one of the things I learned from a lot of companies is they don't want to go mobile app because they're scared that they have to be so proactive and reactive once it's launched. And I think that scariness is not going to help going forward, because 45% think that most companies fail to deliver a great customer experience in the B2B space. That gives you room for improvement. B2B app provides a personalized and optimized customer experience or buyer experience. Customers are more likely to be loyal, right? Here are two app examples, companies that have done well. Caterpillar. Caterpillar now extensively uses it to guide farmers, people at the very basic level. They give so many details, informations, back and forth interactions about crops, about their yields, about future coming tips, future sales, service reminders, lease payments, so many things, right? Again, we talked about Docusign. Docusign uses this so well across all types of mobile devices and formats. So this brings us to my last poll question. Could you rate your organization's mobile marketing efforts in your industry? Again, the choices are above average, average, or below average.
So something about what you're saying, Venki, I think is affecting our opinion of ourselves. I'm watching these come in, and give me one more second, but yeah, 70% think that we are below average, and only 5% believe we are above average, only 5%.
Well, thank you for, again, confirming that this story cannot be truer than what is in the larger B2B space, because this is one area that B2B firms are playing catch up. So I'm not surprised at all with this. Most firms have plans for, their websites are better organized today than before. Their social media is even better than before. The pandemic has accelerated some of those. But where they are behind is in the mobile strategies. So I'm going to conclude with some takeaways for today. We all want to make sure that we are digital first, if not already, because it's becoming the fast new normal, especially post-pandemic. Leveraging the digital value grid to guide strategic digital investment spending would be well worth your investments and time. And that's the power of framework, number one, that I showed you, right? How to use those in terms of value addition, and the orientation being cost reduction versus value orientation, and the lifetime value of your customers. And the next takeaway today is the second framework, and the customer journey framework, because today's B2B customer journey does not start with your traditional need recognition that you can impact with your sales force. It does way before that, using their customer-owned touch points in digital media and completely unrelated spaces. So we need to understand where we can, using that funnel, where we can do the influencing. And finally, use the social media mobile matrix framework that I suggested to drive your digital communication strategy, because you have to understand the two dimensions, the engagement and the reach, and effectively use the combinations for different customers at different points in time, the different life cycle, to be guiding your digital strategy. I hope today's presentation give you some food for thought in terms of how to use frameworks, particularly in the digital space. I'm going to stop here, and I'd love to hear your reactions and take comments.
Sure. So we had a couple people ask this question, and yes, the recording and the slides are a part of the package. So we'll share those later after the meeting. So we had a couple of the Venki that were really interesting. One is maybe I'll do this one first because it's a little longer. So when the companies have answered, we are below our where we need to be, very far below. Where would you suggest people start?
I would say start yesterday. So, in other words, start.
But what should they focus on? How should I mean, how do they know even which of these tools they should be using?
I think they have to use all the tools, but the thing is they have to start with a quick digital audit and mobile audit. In fact, I teach a course on digital strategy for both B2B and B2C separately. And the first thing they do a project, and the first thing they start doing a digital audit right away. And they realize where are the gaps, and they're so much behind. And once they start that, then we have to put a team in place, a framework in place, and start moving fast. This space, it's more of do and learn rather than you have to do this initial frameworks first to get some guidance, but then you have to be moving fast too. Unfortunately, a lot of firms, get paralyzed. They say, "Oh, we are so much behind. We don't know where to start." And I mentioned every time I have an app conversation, they'll say that, "Oh, my app has to be so good, right? I'm not ever there." But that's not the point. The point is you have to start with an MVP, a minimum viable product. So we have to have an MVP, but we can scale up very quickly and get there. And the only way to do is just to learn. On the fly, on the job, but you need to use the initial frameworks as a guiding starting point. And I work with quite a few firms in this, and I've learned a lot by experimenting with the firms myself. And so the firms should be willing to experiment and learn.
Great. I have a question also. So should we be doing digital marketing independently in our different regional languages?
That's a good question for language. The answer is no, because you have to have an integrated digital marketing. You could have the experts in different languages be at the table when we start. Particularly, it matters when it comes to communication and website design. So they should be at the table first. But if you do it completely separately, this happens actually in a lot of countries. They leave the local office to do it, or one local office is faster than the others. They get into problem. Most recently, I worked with Exxon Mobil, and Exxon had this problem of integrating so many diverse initiatives, and then they fell back. So I would advise firms not to jump into and do separate ones.
Okay, another one. I think we all agree we need to do this as marketers, but how do we convince our upper management that we need to invest the resources in this?
It's a good question. First of all, now it's becoming easier now because the marketplace is telling you, right, that you're so far behind, or your outcomes are also showing in terms of market share, sales growth, and so on. And also the pandemic has accelerated. Most firms don't have an option but to digitally accelerate. And so I think combination of all of this should help you impress. If possible, get all the statistics that you can in your industry and show how we are behind and how we need to catch up. That would be the starting place.
So maybe competitive analysis is a good place to look. And if your competitors are already ahead of you, that would be good. If you're not, if your whole industry is a laggard in that, which I think we have some, where the industries just nobody's taken the advantage yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But as we know, most of your customers are further than you on digital. So it's sometimes your customer comes to you and say, how come you're not having this, right? And that's how things come to a pass. I'm reminded of an example. Black & Decker sells primarily to the retailers, Home Depot and Lowe's and so on. Black & Decker came up with a great digital strategy and started implementing, and before they knew, Home Depot was really, at their throat saying, hey, wait a minute, we are already ahead of you, right? and these things are behind the curve. How come you didn't engage us? And they were doing 20% of their sales. So just goes to show that power of customer is also very high.
Yeah. And the last one before we head into lunch. So nobody opens my emails. All right. So if people are doing email marketing, do you have any advice for that?
I mean, that's a serious issue. I have a whole class on email marketing, the open rates. The open rates are a telltale sign of the relevance of your communication and the target, right? If you're, when you say nobody opens, we need to have a benchmark, right? The open rates are different for different products, different industries. So I hope we know what you are with respect to the benchmark. Then we will see. I am assuming it's below the industry benchmark, and then we can start to work around. So we have to look at your audience, the email list, and the relevance of communication, the do not subscribe, how different and engaging that is, even if it's a relevant communication. So there's a whole checklist of things right from top to bottom that I'm more than happy to talk about. In fact, today I have a session on email marketing to my senior class.
And so, I know you need to run, so I'm going to let you go and speak on your behalf. I'll let you go to class. If you have more questions for Venki in this topic area, please reach out to us. We'll make sure we connect you. And Venki, I love the classes you've mentioned. We may need to figure out how to bring them to our
Absolutely, anytime. And I plan to join you tomorrow because I apologize today. I have a whole day of teaching in person. I'm marrying digital with in person. With COVID situation rampant, so go figure, right?
Stay safe.
But I will be there tomorrow, and I'm most happy to chat with everybody and love to hear your thoughts. And I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much again. Sure.
We'll say goodbye to Venki again. All of our presentations, except for one, are recorded, and you'll be able to get your you'll be able to get copies of those a few days after this presentation. So